Hi, guys. Thank you for joining me. I'm Lydia Benham with Whole Modern Parent, and today we have an exciting couple who's joined our collective of experts. We have Cale and Megan Lopp. Hi, guys.
Hi.
They are the founders of Green Couch Design, a boutique all-inclusive design firm, and we are more than thrilled to be welcoming them to our ship and to have a little chat with you guys today.
Yes, we're excited too.
Yes.
Looking forward to getting to know this community better and just being a part of these deeper conversations.
Yeah. So one of the really cool things about the Lopps, because you guys are the Lopps now.
The Lopps, we
are
are.
the
So
Lopps.
we'll take it. Our friends call us Keg and Mail because people get Meg and Cale confused. So
Mixed up
Keg
all
and
the
Mail.
Oh, Keg and Mail. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So what we love about the Keg and Mail is that they are not only brilliant at what they do and their designs and their house design, but they are also artistically working on the intersection between lifestyle architecture within the home and within the family unit. So they are pretty much everything that we strive for with Whole Modern Parent and trying to figure out. And I will go ahead and why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you both?
I'll let you
Yeah,
start.
so Green Couch started on a green couch in college.
Yeah.
People like to think it was this big fancy thing, but it was not. It was this old beat up couch, and that's where we dreamed up our life together in a design firm and raising our babies with our kids playing under our desk while we worked and take over the world. And yeah, so and maybe made out a little bit. So that's kind of where the green couch came from. Yep. And our dream was always to have this intersection where, like, life, so many times in your professional career, you feel like you have to choose like family or success, right? Like you either get to work at the really cool place, but your family suffers, but you get to, be that professional person. You get to go for the thing, work with all the cool clients, or you have the more 9-to-5 job that's safe, that's not as fun, not as creative, but more safer and guaranteed.
And you have the home life.
Right. And I think for us, we were always like, why? I just don't feel like we never wanted to have to choose, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we have gotten it down perfectly or
that we've gotten to do everything that we wanted to do right away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's that idea that you can have both, mm-hmm. and that life and family can really be very much a part of your career, of your design, of who you want to be. And so the home architecture and design for both of us is very near and dear to our heart. And then the idea of how that expresses itself through family has always been just like second nature. We can't not have family be a part of what we do.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of where the growth beyond just being a design firm happened.
Mm-hmm. And it's been 10 years of us like, okay, I think we're ready. And then we have babies. And then I think we're ready. And then we have another baby. And then and then we have another baby. And, and like literally where I'm sobbing and, I'm sobbing because I'm like, it's never going to happen. But I love these kids, but I don't, like, they've taken everything away from me. Sorry. So it's been,
So, okay, speaking of babies, how many babies do you and Cale have together?
So we have three. We have 3 boys. They are 7, 5, and 3.
Okay. And then how long have you and Cale been married? 10 years?
12.
12. Okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
That like 10 year and you were like, we're like legit now, like feels.
Yeah, I do feel like 10 is like a badge because I'm pretty close to that. I think next year or the year after. I have to
Yeah.
think about that. But I feel like that is like you have, I don't know if it's just the fact that you've made it that long or that you figured out how to survive that long, or like that's like 10 years is next level,
It is.
especially. Yeah, it really is. It's, I mean,
Well, and I feel like all the work you've been putting into family and yourself and just to getting where you want to be, I feel like you're finally feeling traction in those things.
Right.
And I think when you're in the thick of it, you feel like we're never going to get there. You know, like we're just running around like chickens with their heads cut off, like hoping we like get there. And yeah, and I feel like, gosh, the last 5 years specifically, it just feels like things have really progressed. But it's all the
Right.
work we've been putting in of, you know,
mhm.
career and a home and family, and the intentional, like we've chosen to intentionally slow down the growth of Green Couch so that while we were having babies, we could be present, we could build those structures in place for family and home so that as the kids got older, you know, we knew what culture we wanted to cultivate in our home.
Mhm.
Because you
Only
get so busy and
right.
doing just surviving that then all of a sudden you get 10 years down the road and you're like, whoa, is this where we really wanted to be? And that just happens out of because you're surviving. I mean,
Right.
I'm not saying you intentionally do that, but that was a big thing of us. So we just did not want that to happen.
And we always talked about our business and us, like even a family, the difference between growing versus building. A lot of
Mhm.
people talk about building a business, and we've struggled with that term because building feels very forced and controlled,
Yeah,
and
you're right.
forcing something to happen. And as an architect and a contractor, I mean, I understand building,
Sure.
you know, and
Sure.
it's like you are forcing that to happen. You're making that happen, and there's a schedule and there's a process and there's all these steps, and it can be very limiting, I think, we think, on the creative process and also on yourself,
Mhm.
because if you grow it, the beauty of the organic is that you it happens in its own pace and its own
Mm-hmm.
time,
Mm-hmm.
and you can really ride the flow of your growth as well as your business's growth, and it ebbs and flows. The scary part of growing versus building is you don't have a specific plan, and you don't have a hardcore, like, I know how I'm going to get there.
Right.
And
Not
so there's
always.
this very
Yeah.
much this trust factor when you
Yeah.
start to grow something. I mean, when you put a seed in the ground and you water it, you don't know when that thing's going to break ground and how fragile
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be and what you're going to have to do to keep it alive. Whereas building, it's like, I'm going to make these blocks and I'm going to stack them
Is
up.
it? I feel like maybe we tell ourselves it is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you build you draft a strategic plan. You know, at like whatever year 3, this is what you're driving towards, and this is going to happen. But does it? You know, I think
Right.
it's almost maybe it's like the mentality shift. What you guys have done is you've actually just you've come to the realization faster than most of us, that you can intentionally grow and drive progress and even have self-development and awareness within it
Mm-hmm.
together, but you're not just completely driven by timelines, because timelines are always just estimates anyway, right?
Exactly.
Totally. Totally.
Exactly.
Well, and we know people that have muscled through it, you know, and made it work. And the thing is, like, we love the saying, like, if you build it in your own strength, you have to sustain it in your own strength. And for us, that is like sort of about our relationship with God and our personal faith too. But it's also, I think, we all can just be like, but this is what I want and I'm going to make it happen. And there's definitely been seasons with Green Couch for me personally where I'm like, I'm going to show up. I'm going to push this thing. And then it's like all this pressure, and it's not really sustainable. Like,
Yeah.
even if we see momentum happening, it's not this sustainable. I'm not building anything that's sustainable long term.
Right.
So we've had to really be like, okay, what does healthy look like in different seasons? Because it looks very different in different seasons. for us individually, as our family grows, and how does our business start to circulate around that? And how do we build a business that can flex?
And how does it become sustainable in and of itself? Like eventually, do you have to be there for your business to operate and flow and function? Or can you really grow it and give it a life of its own where it can serve your clientele well without having to bury you in work?
Yes.
And that's the beauty of it is, but it takes longer,
Yeah,
I think, to get there. You're growing an oak. You're not growing like, speed corn, like sweet corn that you're going to harvest in 2 months. You're growing an oak. And so like,
Yeah.
that's the
Well, I
idea.
mean, it's the foundation takes a little bit longer, which makes,
Sure.
I mean, that makes sense. So I think one of the beautiful things that the Lopps do really well, especially on some of your social channels, is you guys talk about going at it together. And this is something, well, all of us parents, all of the community members, and everyone that's part of Whole Modern Parent, you're trying to, no matter, even if you're single, you're trying to figure it out with someone. You've got someone that is helping you as a care partner or whatever it looks like. And I think that's one of the things that, we don't talk about as much, how hard it is. I mean, yes, we call our girlfriends and complain.
Ooh, that's a good conversation, actually. It feels like you will not do that.
Yes.
Like
Cale's like, no.
I just want to be her number one girlfriend.
Right.
And then after that, she can have as many others as she wants.
Don't get me wrong. I go to my girlfriends and I'm like, my husband's driving me nuts today. Like, but it's different when your whole world is going and bitching to your girlfriends. Like, there's a problem. That's not good.
No. So I think that this is something like, and it's interesting because I think generationally, I think you have like, 20, 30 years ago, it was the generation who was like the silent generation. There were just these roles and everyone was expected to do certain things and be certain roles within relationships and raising children and things. And Cale's laughing.
She just didn't get that memo. Like she didn't get that memo.
I'm like, no, you will help me vacuum the floor. Do you understand me?
This is
like,
how this works.
Before we get married, do you understand? Like, this is how this is going to work.
Yeah, I mean, that's great enlightenment. I mean, really, we should all have those conversations before we get married. So actually, my grandmother did give me that advice. She was like, you need to sit down and decide who's going to do what in the house. I know.
I think it's so great, silly, but
it's great. Well, and then I think we had a generation that, it was in flux and they were trying to kind of figure out, and a lot of their cultural drivers. I mean, you had more women in the workforce. You also had, a little bit of the financial power was moving more towards women as well, which drove some of the changes. And so you see like this generation, they're trying to figure it out. But I think that it was almost like they went to the opposite norm where it was, they had to be the role of just like more breadwinner working and they had to deny the motherhood sides of themselves. And you see that especially, just the workplace where you have people who are intolerant of childcare issues. So I think we're in the generation that is, this year we just blew everything off the handle. So.
We're gonna lay it all out there.
Yeah.
Sink or swim. Here we go. Okay.
You're right. Exactly. So it's we're trying to figure it out, and I think that this is a really important aspect for us as parents with Whole Modern Parent, is that we also want to be that safe space where we can kind of have these conversations and know that everyone's norm looks different, how we conduct ourselves, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of doing that self-introspect and figuring it out. But we need to have these conversations with couples like you who are figuring out how to do it together. And you have a strategy like your gut checklist. for figuring it out.
Yes. So we wrote a post. This was like in the thick of baby babies. And we wrote a post about gut checklist. Just because you get so busy and going and doing and just surviving with the breastfeeding and the, working and just keeping the house clean and feeding nachos every night or whatever you can throw at them. So, but our gut checklist was, sorry, we're pulling it up here.
No, well, and I think the real thing for the gut checklist is about trust, and that's where everything centers and hinges. Is that if you have to build that trust, you have to really build that trust, and that's where the conversations really started to grow for us. And what we've found is that we, even back to the stuff that we were talking about where Meg is like, this is how we want to handle house chores and those kinds of things. Like, we've always talked about the conversations between us being something that you have to be able to disagree, because let's just be honest, it's going to happen. You're going to have those disagreements, and especially when you're moving at the speed that life is going to want to move. If you have desires and dreams and goals and visions, then you don't have time. You don't have 2 hours to sit and
We used
talk
to,
it out
and we used to
work
enjoy
through
that.
it.
Yeah.
And so there's this level of trust where I fly through, and I'm grabbing the kids, and Meg's headed out the door to go to a client meeting or what have you, and she's going, rattling off like the 5 things that happened today that she needs me to handle while she's gone. And there's that level of trust that those are A, the 5 things that need to happen, and B, that she's thought through what needs to progress for the next day or the next few hours, so that I can just throw myself into those different things and really commit to that trust as a team. I mean, it's a team, and we can't do it alone. I cannot do what we do by myself, and Meg can't either. And we could do a form of it, but it would be shallow and it would be hollow, and it would ultimately probably be a little fake, because the reality is that it takes this to make all of that happen. And so that's like the foundation that I wanted to just say before we go diving headlong into this gut checklist, because if you don't have some of that trust, I would say take a weekend, get a hotel room, drop the kids off, and be like, okay, let's do 20 questions, or let's play some kind of a game here where we just start to bounce conversation off of each other to build this level of trust of, I know where you are. And even if I don't agree in the moment what you're saying, I trust the core of who you are enough to say, you know what, let's go.
Right.
Like,
and that means
swim,
too, it's
go.
like when that person's saying, I'm struggling with this, or I'm struggling with how you do it like this way, as long as it's not in a combative way, instead of us coming against each other, it's like, hey, we're on the same team. We're trying to do the same things. Like, you might have a certain way you want it done. I have a certain way I want it done. How do we bring those together? Or which parts do I need to let go of? Which parts does he needs to let go of? Like, it's, one of my favorite things was like, figure out what are your 1 or 2 things that, like, especially for women, I feel like, you put all this weight on yourself of like keeping the house clean and
the perfection,
all the things, and doing all the other things that you're supposed to be doing. And so I heard this, somebody had mentioned, like, well, just like ask your husband, like, or your partner, what's the like 1 or 2 things that I need to do every night for you,
right.
like for you to feel like the house is taken care of. Like, and one couple was like he cannot stand having dishes in the sink. So she's like, okay, so that I will make sure that the dishes are not in the sink. but the rest of the house could be a complete disaster. But you have to give me grace on the other stuff. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I will make sure that these things get done for the most part, almost every day, as best as I can.
Yeah.
But the other stuff you're
Well,
going to
that
have to
works
let go
both
of.
ways.
Yeah. And so it helps, like, again, as the teammate, like, which things can I focus on, and what are the other things that I can let go of?
Mm-hmm. No, that's like genius. I wish you guys would have told me that last week.
I know. So,
but right now a lot's just been let go because it's just we're everyone right now.
Yeah. So yeah, and like our checklist is just like check in weekly with each other. It's seriously like especially when our kids were little, like in car seats, which they still are, we would be like, okay, let's strap them in to the car seat. We're 30 minutes from like most things, 20, 15, 20 minutes. So it was like, okay, we'll go on the way there. The kids are strapped in. We'll put on a kid podcast or something, or they'll just go crazy. But we are going to talk and check in and be like, hey, are you good, in the line at Chick-fil-A? And like, that's
Right.
our 20-minute, like, come to Jesus. And I think when you have that check-in weekly, you also have to be honest with each other, because so many times you're like, I'm fine, I'm good. Like,
yeah.
I'm fine is not an answer that you can allow to happen in those check-ins, because it whitewashes so many issues.
Yeah.
And we say, I'm fine. And then you're just carrying it. And it's like, back to that trust thing, your partner wants, if they love you, if they want to be with you, they want to be with you in that. And to say I'm fine is really stealing that opportunity for them to love you and support you. I mean, you're basically saying, I don't need you, I can handle this on my own. And that's just not true so many times. I mean, why do we get married? Why do we have partners in life? Why do we want
this is a lot of
to
work
be together? It's so that we can live together.
Yeah.
So if anybody be honest with that person. And so I'm fine is not okay. And we literally will drive each other nuts going, are you really okay?
And it's not just saying I'm okay, but it's also about like actually saying, these are the things I'm working through this week. These are the things I'm struggling with this week. And then, how do we start to establish like quantitative in goals, dates that you both can agree on, because a lot of times it's like, I'm struggling with this thing on the kids, and Cale is able to be like, well, have you tried this, or could we try that, or like, how maybe it is like hiring a sitter for an hour so you can go wash your hair. Like, I literally know somebody that told me, she was like, I have a sitter come to the house for an hour so I can go take a shower and get dressed and be like once a week. And that's her like little treat to herself.
I think she takes a shower more than once a week.
Well, sure. I don't know.
No, I didn't even. Yes, I assumed she had some hygiene.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And there were seasons where Cale, like, as much as he wanted to be that support for me, but there were moments where it was like, but you're working 60 hours a week. So my free time and my extra is dependent upon you being home. And it was this constant tension of like trying to get, then I would get mad at him because if he didn't get home on time, then I don't get to go to my thing or get a break or la la la.
Right.
So sometimes you have to find ways in different seasons to fill those gaps, because again, he only has so much to give, you only have so much to give.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up the seasons, because I think that's, especially with everyone watching, we all have different age groups that we're caretaking for, and I think that's one of the things. And I know I'm in a pretty tough season right now, and we do have the issues where it's like you being home is directly equated to my free time, so that is like. Yes. And it's hard because sometimes it's just you're trying to get out the door. You're just a ship passing another ship, and it's a season. Yeah. And that's something that I like that you guys also, you talk about addressing the seasons, because there isn't one solution for all of it. It's just kind of reassessing repackaging, restructuring, like having the conversations multiple times over and over, because I think it's a cultural thing that we want to do and fix one time, and we've done it. And then we just want to throw our hands up and say,
Yeah.
it's just like kids' schedules. I mean, oh my
yeah.
gosh, the amount of times you have to like go back at those.
Yes, totally.
So I think it's also like we're relearning that, like, life is a constant. We're kind of reassessing, restyling, reworking. It's not just a sit and play.
And sometimes that in itself can be exhausting, because the idea of it constantly changing is a thing that will pick at you and pick at you. And so I think for us too, we've had to, again, like figure out, which is like how we design homes too, is like figuring out your core values, like with your schedule, what things can you implement systems so you don't have to think about it?
Yeah.
Because those are things that they might change in big amounts of time, but you're not having to change those every month or every 6 months. So whatever your habit is for doing the laundry and getting it done, or whatever you're like, I've had to let go of, I have like fought having, Taco Tuesday and meatless Mondays and all those things. Like I have fought having that, because I'm like, I want to cook whatever I want. But then let's be honest, then I was feeding the kids nachos every night. So I had to like, okay, like which one do you want? Because there's reality and then there's the expectations in your head, and you can't meet those expectations. So then you're just constantly beating yourself up for something that you can't ever get to. And so it's like, all right, I had to let those go and say, okay, we're going to have Taco Tuesday. And my kids love Taco Tuesday. It's their favorite night of the week. Why do we overcomplicate it?
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's as on our gut checklist, it's like those seasons, there are certain aspects of that. Well, for example, when I was pushing hard on my architectural license, it was like, I'm going to go get this architectural license. Meg had to step into something that for us is not our norm, which was a very traditional role set, where I was going to work, coming home, studying for tests and exams to get my architectural license, and Meg was full-time homemaker, do the dishes, fix the food, like all of that. And that's not really our go-to process, but for that season. And so we knew that there was like, okay, for this season,
right,
we're going to choose to bend a little here or adjust here and get through this, so that we can come to that end goal. And then we're going to shift back into our, and the key there, I think, is that you have a very definite date that you're like, I'm taking my final test this date, so that both of you know what you're shooting for, and neither of you, whoever is carrying the load during that time, they have an end goal. It's so much easier. You can carry 10 times more weight, 5 times farther, when you know that end is right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't have an end, you're like by mile 2, you're done, because you don't know.
Right.
And that not knowing really tears you up. And so I would say that those are some of our biggest discussion points that take the longest for us conversationally, is to say, okay, we need a weekend, or we're going to go on a date night.
So those are not Chick-fil-A conversations.
Those are not Chick-fil-A conversations. I mean, you can't get there to really pull out the calendar and say, how are we going to do this, and look at the logistics of it and restructure.
Right.
I mean,
because sometimes it's literally like, you just have to have a conversation where I'm waving the white flag and I don't know what the end is, but I know I'm not happy here. Like I'm not okay. And I don't even know what the answer is to get me out of that okay. But I know that this is not working. And if we're not working, if we're not, if I'm not happy, which I understand, being happy is a whole nother conversation we can have.
But we don't have time for that today.
That was the Hefner Lake. That was was Hefner Lake. Sitting in the car, Meg's just like, I'm not happy. I'm done. How are we going to solve this? And then it led to a conversation where, with a lot of tears on both sides, we worked through this process of kind of restructuring our life to what it is now, I would say. And that was probably 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Roughly.
But I had to like have that initial like scary moment of conversation where you're like, I was telling my husband, who's working his ass off every day for us, that it's not enough.
That it's not enough.
Yeah.
And that felt really shitty.
Yeah. And that's hard. And I think that there's, and I know it's kind of a catchy term right now, but I think that there is a level of vulnerability that we aren't comfortable with in relationships. And I think it is because I think we kind of stay in our own lanes. Like we do our own educating, we do our own research. And I think we just have so much coming at us that it's hard to kind of actually sit side by side with something or someone specifically and absorb that. It's hard. It is. Yeah.
And we don't want to become, we've always said it like this, like we don't want to become roommates that just are roommates and do the work and get the things done and take care. We keep the kids alive, turn them into like functioning humans. But are we really living together? Are we really being married in the sense of being one person as we like to understand it? And how does that work? And I think that it's easy to, and we have to, that's where this gut checklist comes in, because it's easy for me to fall into my rhythms and just go, and Meg to fall into her rhythms and just go.
Right.
And then we'll get 6-8 months down the road if we're not having these conversations.
Yes.
And go, I'm not happy. And Meg's going, I'm not happy either. And why are we doing this?
Yeah.
and having to back up and say, oh, like, is this, because I think too, what you're saying, like you get wrapped up in what, you know, your mother's expectation is of what your family life should look like, or what your family's culture was back then, and you put all this pressure on yourself, or you get on Instagram and you see what everybody else is doing, and you know, it's just all these things, and all of a sudden your life is not your own.
Right.
Living all these expectations that you put on yourself. And so I feel like even for us, we have to like stop and be like, okay, is this what we really want? Like, are we really, because we are people pleasers, Cale and I, for sure. Like we're both the oldest sibling. Like we're both like, we know, you know, we just want to make you happy. And we've done a lot that we had to like realize. There was a lot, even in the beginning of our marriage before kids, there was a lot we feel like, looking back, that I feel like we gave a lot of ourselves, because it was like, well, it's not a big deal. Like, we'll just show up, we'll do the thing, we'll be there. It's not a big deal. Like, we want to make you happy. We love you. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you start having kids and your life changes and your focus, it's bigger than just you. And we have a whole life we want to introduce our kids to. And what is that life? And what is that culture? And are we really designing our life to get them those experiences, versus wrapped up in what everybody else thinks they should get or receive, or
So I kind of want to wrap this with asking you guys one final question. So everyone knows, we will be hearing a lot more from the Lopps. So don't think that you're getting the short end of the stick on this, as they join us as our first couple of expert contributors. We will be finding out a lot more information in regards to kind of going at it together and what that looks like. So one of the questions that we like to close these with is, we like to ask everyone why they are a whole modern parent. And we kind of like to ask this because it's kind of how you fit the mold. And I think obviously everything you've been saying fits. And it's not. I shouldn't have used that word mold. We're not a mold. We're just trying to figure it all out together here. But
Yes.
so what makes you guys a whole modern parent? Together as a collective or individually?
That's huge.
It's
a really big question.
Do you want to go or you want me to go?
I guess I would say for us, the idea of whole modern parenting it could be summed up in the concept that that we're not just raising children, but we're raising adults. We're raising that next generation, and it's the idea that if we don't, we can learn as much from them as they can learn from us. And the challenges of parenting are very much like a conversation. I think that's what I would take away from it. They're not rules. They're guidelines, and they're conversations, and their growth. And if you, as we every day are having to learn, if we're not learning and we're not growing as parents daily from watching our children, from seeing what's going on and in our home and where our home wants to be, and the culture of our family, and watching each other and learning from each other, then we're not truly, I guess, parenting. We're just enforcing rules. And so I guess that would be my answer.
Well,
hopefully you agree.
Hello. I feel like that's like, Cale, you set Megan up on that one.
I know. It was good. That's how he works. Those quotables. Sorry. I know. I'm always like, wait, say that again. I got to type that down. When I met Cale, actually, when I fell in love with him, oh, sorry.
That is sweet.
When I fell in love with him, I was very much like, we're going to take over the world. We're going to do all this stuff. We're going to and he's like, okay, but if the greatest thing we do is raise an awesome family that know what family is and know what love is and have a home, like that's taking over the world too. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but and he's like, okay, but if at the end of the day, if all we do is this, like this is a big deal. And with Green Couch, like our heart is like, hey, you take over the world with whatever four corners you call home. Like It starts there. And right now, with all the things going on in the world right now that feel scary, and you're like, I don't even know how to start having these conversations or where, or I mean, it feels very overwhelming. And it's like, you just start at your breakfast table. Like you push the envelope a little bit more, and you push into that harder conversation, whether that's with your spouse or your kids. You don't run away from those things, and you press in, and yes, I hope that we can still grow and do all these awesome things. But the beauty that Cale has taught me and I think that sums up whole modern parenting is that it's like, hey, at the end of the day, it's about being right here and being present and enjoying it while still believing that the best is yet to come. So.
That's beautiful. Thank you both so much for your time. This has been, eye-opening and lots of takeaways, and I appreciate the almost free therapy session as well. Lots of goodness.
We'll send you
So you can find more of Megan and Cale on their Instagram. It's at Green Couch Design, or they have a great newsletter. I highly recommend subscribing. I'm on it at greencouchdesign.net. And we will post that information in this post for you guys to access a little bit later. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
So much. Bye.
Bye.